Like they have a lot of trauma, and they're obviously beautiful kids and no different than your son with his challenges. Like we're all creating God's image, whatever that look, however that looks. But you are signing up for something different than obviously your own, and you would be very qualified to speak on that. Like you probably don't want to say too much on here, but just the difference between your biological children and what that journey is. It's different, right?
Yeah.
Different parenting.
We parent our biological children very differently than we parent our adopted children. And we didn't at the beginning.
Okay. Okay.
What do you mean different?
Yeah. Are you willing to share what that looks like? Because maybe that's too much, but I mean, I kind of know your story, and it's a really special. Like it's been a.
Yeah. How do I say it? So I said I was ignorant, thinking that we were good parents, and I really mean that, because we, you just learn how to do it. Nobody gives you a playbook on how to be a parent. You figure it out as you go, and you learn just different pieces of currency with your kids, right? In discipline and in stuff like that. You walk alongside you. This is going to sound really terrible.
Oh, just say it. Just say it. Just say it.
You see yourself in your children. You see pieces
makes sense.
of your own personality or your spouse's personality, and you've learned how to deal with that. You've got experience that you can bring to the table to go, okay, I need to come alongside this in this way or that way, and it's going to be okay because they're going to, I know that they're going to figure this out in this way or whatever. And you lean in and you apply the pressure and the pieces and things like that to help your children grow and thrive. And it felt like with our adopted kids, there was no currency that worked. There was nothing that they felt.
How old were they?
Compelled. They were 4 and 5 when they came to live to join our family, and you would, because there is neurodiversity there. There are just some pieces that are different, and so when we would try certain disciplines and things like that, they were threats. You get the fight or flight stuff happening with trauma and stuff, which most of the kids coming out of foster care and things like that have. And so you would trigger these fight or flight things without even realizing it. And you think you're applying pressure in a disciplinary way, and they're seeing it as a threat, and it just blows up. And then I experience it. Sarah's much better than me, but I experience it as disrespect a lot of the time. I'm not going to do what you're asking me to do, or I'm not going to respond, or I just don't care. I interpret it as I just don't care.
Very triggering for you.
Very triggering for me. Extremely triggering for me.
Do you recognize this?
Oh yeah, this is fascinating.
And so this has been a real journey for me personally. Again, that pride thing, right? Yeah. I've got it. I can do things.
I'm your dad.
Yeah. And I would never allow that with
your bio kids.
My bio kids. Yeah. And they wouldn't
even try it.
They wouldn't even try it. And it was done. Yeah. And that's just not the case. And I'm, for me, it's been, it's just convicting, because frankly, it's me now. It's me always with my relationship with the Lord, because I'm constantly just continuing to do the same things over and over, the same sin over and over, and that's how my adopted kids are, is they keep doing the same things over and over, and I can't seem to get them to change course. And I look and I go, man, oh man, I'm the same way with the Lord. I know better, but I don't. I still choose myself. And so that's the journey. I'm not I'm not figuring it out. I'm trying, but
It is interesting because it's in our Christian community, and that kind of ties into what I was saying about just how you know, the expectation even of what you're getting when you adopt, right? But like, I read a book, and I haven't read a lot of books. Marie's read literally hundreds of books about adoption and fostering, but I have read a handful. And one of them I read in 2018 when Hannah was 2 years old and our son was 4. And, you know, we hadn't adopted any kids through the ministry yet. And we're just starting the fostering journey. And it was a book by Kristen Berry called Born Broken. And we were on a holiday, and I just wept reading it. And it was just, all of a sudden the dots were connected of like the hurt that is in the kids' hearts. And like, maybe we had fostered one time, and just kind of put the pieces together of like, and I mean, Kyle can identify this, growing up in a biological home, having trauma and hurt, and me too, even though, you know, very like arguably great home really, you know, but just stuff happens in life. And you think, man, you have these children with this trauma. And it's fascinating because it's like, we always say in our home too, like, there's still consequence. There's always consequence.
Sure.
So there's complete grace and forgiveness if you repent with the Lord, but there's always still consequence. And so we're always in that tension of, hey, you got to have consequences for your kid. And I mean, I don't know how you deal with that. With your kids are a few years ahead of us, I think, because your oldest adopted child would be what, 13 or 14. So I mean, teenager.
Yeah.
So
throw all that in the mix.
Throw all that in there. And I've always struggled too as an adoptive parent, because we don't have bio kids. So there again, you'd be better qualified to comment, because even bio kids just have a lot of challenges. So I always say to Marie, we want to be careful that, hey, it's not pitting one against the other.
Sure.
It's only about understanding one another and realizing that, hey, obviously all parenting is difficult. I mean, we meet people all the time with a handful of kids that are struggling. It's just difficult, right? Yeah. But also people just realizing that in our house, and you can see it because when we sit at church, I'm not setting and rightly or wrongly, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not even saying I'm right, but I just don't feel like the expectation, like I have to pick where the battles I'm going to win are, and like how the kid sits or whether he sits or stands when he's supposed to. I'm just not going to fight that fight. Right. Like, I want you to be in church most of the time, ideally listening. Yeah. And even that's going to look different than a child like I was, where it's just, you're sitting there and you're looking. So those, I don't know if you have that journey in I feel like being judged, I'm judged all the time. Maybe even just my own condemnation of having this inner expectation of how I should be parenting. Is that what you think it is, Kyle? How do you feel you have that where you feel like, oh man, how are people viewing me right now?
No, I think I buried that at some point.
A long time ago. Okay, good
I think
for you.
I did.
That's awesome.
I think I did. Okay. That doesn't.
I don't live in perpetual fear and paranoia like some people do. I'm just saying, I'm definitely aware of, I'm wrestling it in my heart of, should I care about this and lay down the law now?
I wonder how much of it is just how we grew up in, you have to sit still in church and like can't move at all. And that is being carried over. And maybe that wasn't your experience in church growing up. Because that's what.
Well, his dad was preaching, so he's looking at him the whole time. Right?
Yeah, yeah. My mom had the claw.
The claw.
No, I do. I don't know. I do have the piece of, I don't want my children to be a distraction for others and things like that. I want them to be able to have a worshipful experience. So I carry a fairly heavy hand that way, in the sense of, look, guys, we're here for a reason, and that's to worship. And so that's what we're focused on right now. That's what we're going to do. And so, so I do still carry that. It's not for
what other people think.
What other people think.
Now you parent way more gentle now than you would have when you first adopted, right?
Yes.
With your adopted kids. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. So that has been a journey for you. That has been.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's humbling.
The brokenness is the big part of it. I didn't get it.
You just figured, hey, if you would just listen and we all did the same things here, we'd be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we started this conversation with saying before Isaac was born, you had a really strong faith.
Yeah.
And
I still do, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
it's not waning, Kyle. It's not waning.
So I'm wondering, how has your faith been affected, or how would you word that in saying that, like, you said it's broken now? That's what you needed to learn. Like, what changed, or what have you learned? Is it made you appreciate grace more? Like,
yes. It has definitely made me understand grace more, and understand just how sin can separate us from the Lord in relationship. Some of those that brokenness there can really be a challenge in relationship. I have to see, sometimes I have to see the brokenness instead of feeling disrespected as the person. It's not, they're not trying to disrespect me. That's not where it's at. It's an inability to actually get there.
Connect.
And so it's really, that's my, and I'm still growing in that. I still don't, Sarah's much better at it than I am.
Who has more attachment with your adopted children? You or your wife?
Me or my wife?
Yeah, who is attached? Like, such
Sarah.
a big part of adopting. It's just the connecting and feeling. We've
Sarah.
had some wild conversations and journeys in our house with our kids that, I mean, I wouldn't even share per se, but just this idea of like, hey, it's very different than when we hear the stories of, especially with the older kids coming in, which yours is even more than us, but just,
Yeah.
okay. So Sarah's had just felt like a more connected.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's necessarily, I think she's more connected with our biological children too.
Interesting.
Right? Like, I think we just other conversations we've been having as we look at our kids moving on in their lives, I'm learning about Sarah even today as far as how she processes that stuff and where she sees us in the lives of our children as they take the next steps. And I see it differently. So
are you more pragmatic?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm learning about myself in that. It's all new experiences. So I don't know what it's like to have a child all of a sudden move off and get married or whatever, right? And it's like, what do I expect from that? What am I looking at with that? So
interesting.
Well, before we started recording, and I shared with you that it made me somewhat uncomfortable when you were sharing that you had adopted kids and Isaac as well, because it, I think, convicts me to a certain degree about like my own desire for comfort in my own home, and the idea of having adopted kids would be really, really hard and challenging. And I think there's a lot of people in that position, and Gary's talked about it often here on the show. But what would your take be? Like, how would you challenge me and any listener listening to when it comes to adoption and giving up your life, because you're giving up your comforts. Like, you must have known that when you were considering adopting, to be like, hey, this isn't going to make my life easier.
Yeah. Probably didn't realize it the way I,
You realize it now.
Yeah. But I mean, there's such a need. There's such a need. As we were somewhere along the way, I was challenged. If the church is going to ask women to have these children and not abort them, then we better be ready to step up and love them and do what we need to do to take care of them. And so I feel I'm a strong advocate for adoption, and I feel very strongly that the church has to have a leading role in that.
And they do, to be fair.
Yes.
They do.
Yes. But more
still weak. Yeah.
At the ground level.
Okay.
I think there can be better understanding and better support. We have, how do I say it? There's a lot of Christians in we'll say Canada, whatever, who sometimes I call it an army, right? Of believers who understand who Jesus is and understand the gospel. And I don't think as large a percentage are actively living out the gospel as we could have. Really, really applying it in our lives, in every day, in what we're doing. And I shared that's kind of what Outreach Canada is about. This is an area where I think, like Gary said, not every family needs to adopt children. That's not practical. It's not healthy. It's not the answer. But being educated and being recognizing. So if the family is embarrassing, if the family is, wild and not controlled and stuff like
Unhinged.
that,
Yeah.
unhinged, that there's grace in that. There's an understanding, and there's an active, how do we come alongside? What can we do to support this family? And adoption isn't the only place.
Way
There's
to
all
do it.
kinds. There's
Totally.
all kinds of needs, but if I'm critical, and sometimes I am, I just think sometimes
It's not a fruit of the spirit.
No,
I know
it's
you
not.
want it to
I
be,
know.
but it's not.
I know it's not. There's
Honesty
lots of
is.
people who
Yeah.
don't.
Oh,
who
no, it's not either.
Oh, that's right.
It's not either, Kyle.
Shoot.
Honesty, brutal honesty. We have the combo here.
There you go. There are ways that the church, the body of Christ, can lean in and care for some of these areas that we could do better than we do at times.
I find it interesting listening to you share now about your story, very succinctly, really quite briefly, but like all the things that, and I don't like, it's been really my experience. I have like a few things in my life that have been very, very challenging. And all probably the most sanctifying experiences, like being an elder at church and adopting children, and just being an elder through COVID, I think. But just in general, like wearing that mantle and not feeling qualified in any way, feeling complete fraud sometimes. And so it's interesting even listening to you talk. And I don't think my faith is anything like your faith. I not to compare per se, but I just have never felt that assurance. And again, I've just wrestled with a lot of those thoughts of unworthiness and even like. But I do think like Christians, while on one hand probably should never doubt the assurance of their salvation because that's from God and we can trust him. We are supposed to also be in a state of perpetual repentance, which is when you say like, hey, realizing your sin, I think that's like, we are going to be way less critical and way less judgmental, and even with our own children, but with everybody, when we are spending time just reflecting on our own heart, right? And so I think that in our culture is lacking. Like we're perpetually looking at other people, judging. Everything's like coming in clips and reels and commenting and seeing what people are saying when like that's all just noise. Like really it's about, hey, when I feel like crushed by the weight of my own sin and come to God and he offers me full forgiveness, which he does if I repent. And then to say, hey, how does that look like as a Christian? Well, I'm not called to comfort. And like, I would say that comfort's one of the main, like, I don't know what your experience has been in your ministries you're in, but like people protect, the reason they protect their pocketbook is because their checkbook is their comfort level, right?
It's their idol.
It's their idol. It's their gold. Yeah. And just comfort, even not even the money piece, just like time, like to think that like, on any given Saturday or weekday even or nighttime, hey, I'm going to be going to counseling with my child, or I'm going to be doing this play therapy, or I'm going to be going, like in our case, we do a lot of visits, right? And there's a lot of trauma attached around visits. We're still doing visits and it's messy and it's hard to even talk about. And our kids, like it's just a journey, right? It's such there's often, Marie and I often say, and I don't know if this is right, but I always feel like, man, if I really processed what we were doing, I'd be a real mess. But it's also just, hey, people have hard lives all over, and ours is not that hard compared to a lot of people. So it's just like, hey, just do the right thing, try to do the right thing, just take the right steps. And I always shoot like tongue in cheek, like life on earth is short, and it's a mist. So like, what are we living for? Right. And I think like, it's fascinating hearing you talk about even that journey with your son and then never trading for anything. And that is the common refrain you hear from anybody is challenging. And that's really challenging. And there's a lot of stories like that we hear in our walk with people. Like it's messy. And so it's pretty interesting that the way you framed your journey with Isaac is really special, even as someone that's watched your family now for 15 years and hasn't always been easy. And even adopting has been a real journey, right?
Absolutely.
Could you share one piece I'm thinking of, because it relates to my marriage, and I've shared about it a bit on here, probably not that well, but like, how are you walking? Because it sounds like you're still doing it with your wife. You've been married a long time. How does that process look of you trying to get on the same page when you're obviously not always or you view things very differently in how you process things? What is that like? Because I've had a lot of talks with guys even in their 50s lately and even older that are just sorting that out even now, that have just started to kind of process that. Like, what does that look like for you guys? If you want, like, could share candidly about that.
So I'm blessed with a wife that lives life out on
She's a getter doner. That's
Yeah,
my perception of your wife. She has
absolutely.
got a lot of
Life is
horsepower.
just out there for everyone to figure out. And it's funny, as my kids get older and start to engage with that more, how it even takes on a life of its own, because the conversations and stuff that come out of that from their perspective um, challenge us too, as a married couple. And they start to see behind the veil at times of how you've sort of managed in front of your children. Well, now they're at a point where they're like, well, wait a minute,
This is not
right?
adding up.
So it's really interesting. I shared some of the conversations of the next phase and what that looks like and how we're processing that differently. Sarah and I are, when we went into the adoption thing, because I don't know, having Isaac really, it meant we're in this together. Like
It prepared you to a certain degree.
oh yeah, like it really galvanized us in the sense of we can't do this on our own. Um, and so really doing that together and really figuring out how we're going to use our strengths individually to be successful in parenting him well and caring for him and all of that stuff. I think we still do that today. When we went to adopt, we really gave each other permission, either of us, to just throw our hands up and say, nope, stop. And that was critical for us because we do process things differently.
That was a conversation you guys had with each other?
Yeah. Yeah. Either of us has permission to just stop at any point, no questions. Early on, I talked about us going into ministry. We had conversations because I was a pastor's kid and my brothers were both pastors. Sarah was really clear with me when we got married. I don't see myself as a pastor's wife. And so we had to deal with that early on, and I had to come to terms with, okay, that's just not something I'm going to consider. Not that I was looking at doing it necessarily, but it was always something I knew I had skill set and stuff that could serve that way. But
how do you? Because people could say that same sentence when it comes to adoption. Like I don't see myself as an adoptive parent, but it's not necessarily how we see ourselves, but what God has called us to.
True. So I would say Sarah along the way has grown and recognized that it's not a role per se that is the defining thing. It's or the skill set involved. So I did end up becoming a pastor, and she was a pastor's wife for a time. And there was that willingness to say, okay, Lord, I am who I am, and I'm going to trust you in this. And that's just growth. In the same way with adoption, we had to give each other permission to say stop at any point until we adopted. And so we had that conversation. Yeah. Did I answer?
You said when Isaac was initially born, your wife had a harder time with it than you did.
Yeah.
And like ground her down. Did you later on have those moments where you got to an end to yourself, or just like how hard the situation was and you had to wrestle it out with God? Because I mean, I'm imagining that with the adoptive kids or with Isaac or maybe your other kids, it's not like sometimes when kids are healthy and they can't still be a huge challenge.
Yeah.
So, did you, or were you able just to always hold on to your faith and not really? Because I've had my own experience, and it's not anything like your story, but it was just like I can't do this. Like I'm done. I can't do this, God, and I'm just curious how.
No, and that's why I call it a spiritual gift, because I just don't. So what I didn't articulate well before is it makes me lazy at times to not to not press into my faith the way I need to, and walk that, be repentant, right? All of those things, because my faith is strong and I don't doubt.
You're not questioning God
do
in the
the
journey.
work sometimes that I need to do. So no, at no point, it's always healthy or not. It's probably I'm the problem.
It's interesting though,
Right.
because couples,
But isn't that always the case? That we're the problem?
Of course, but
Yeah.
we don't always see it that way.
Okay.
We want something to blame, and sometimes we'll blame God, or
Or a
sometimes we'll
spouse.
blame
Yeah.
somebody else.
it's
For
very
me, I tend
interesting because I see it in my own marriage, but I see it in other people too, where very rarely, and actually it can be even more problematic if both people in a relationship process everything the same. That can almost be worse.
Sure.
I think God
We have
intentionally,
blind spots.
we do. God, I think, intentionally puts people that are maybe slower to process together, people that are quick to speak and slow to listen. And in my journey, it's been very like, my wife needs to process things by talking. She is not looking for answers.
Mhm.
She is not looking for anything to be okay. She wants it to not be okay for a bit, and I'm not okay with that. If that makes sense, where I'm just like my saying is just bear down, like, like we'll be fine, right? Like,
Right.
And
Do better.
well, I wouldn't say do better. Like you're doing fine. Like you're fine, right? Like define fine. There's a joke about that, but the inappropriate one. But the it's just very interesting how couples, especially in these challenging things where, I mean, obviously you guys decided together and my wife and have decided together, but there's been times where it didn't feel like we decided together.
Yeah.
Or, hey, this is not going the way we thought, or this is not what I signed up for.
Well, ironically, when you went and took a piss break, he was saying that when they're during the adoptive process, that they both gave each other their permission to say at any point, like, stop, we're not moving forward. And
yeah, but once you've adopted, there's no stopping.
That's
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And we just, I think we've learned along the way, and it's really a blessing with the stuff that we have taken on as a couple. I see it as a real blessing that the Lord has given us a relationship that we can process these things well and healthfully.
Yeah.
We have the talks, we have the, how are you doing? And check-ins, and sometimes I don't want to say, right? I don't want to say how I'm doing because I feel terrible about how I actually feel about things, right? And that's hard.
Do you feel like you can't say that to her? Or is it just in general you don't want to say it out loud?
Depends where she's at.
Okay.
Right. So I've always taken that picture of marriage, and again, you can analyze me later, but
don't worry, we will.
If I'm looking out for your best and you're looking out for my best, we're gonna be okay. Right. So if I'm always, and so if it's too much in that moment, if I feel like it's too much for her to carry in that moment, I'm not gonna share it.
Okay.
And that's probably not right.
That has led to a lot of problems in our marriage.
Yeah.
That exact thing.
Sure.
Where I'm like, no, I'll just take care of this and then not really be honest about how I'm feeling. And in the end, it all does come out because I'm still in the human being tour and it leaks out in weird ways. And then all of a sudden I finally have it all come out and it's like, oh, like now, were you even being authentic? Like what's,
Right.
Because it's probably more that, not that you don't think the other person can handle it, but more that you don't want to deal with the other person's response to what you're saying.
Yeah, or both end. Yeah. Both end, maybe. Absolutely. I don't even think it's black and white per se. I think it's more, and I had a meeting, random chance that I happened to bump into a guy this morning, a good friend of mine who's been going through a very difficult situation in his marriage. And he said it's been the biggest blessing ever. And that was just so cool. Yeah. Because it's not been easy for him or for her. It's just been tough, right? And so I think that has been my experience too, that, it's the old saying of, conflict is the pathway to intimacy. And I think that often people just are not willing to, myself included, I've always been like I would say it a peacemaker and you would say a conflict avoider or whatever.
Right.
Kyle would say that, right? But I think, it's just, there's something really, in order to get to a great spot, often you just got to go through a lot of mess, even if you seem like you're doing reasonably well.
Yeah.
And to be sanctified. I think God sanctifies us and brings us to himself because of suffering.
through
Like,
through
I've
tough
never
things.
had it be like, oh, I got a huge sale. Now I'm way closer to God. Like,
Right.
it's not, it hasn't happened. Maybe it's happened for Gary, but it hasn't happened for me.
Huge auction. I don't know who I feel closer to. I don't know if it's the Lord, but
Yeah.
some dishonest East Indians, anyways. It's so bad.
I think
It's
what
just
you said
carnage.
there was important, that it's going to come out. And I do think, without, I do think that, like, I've certainly had times where that moment isn't right, but then I want to look for the moment that is,
And you get there. Okay.
and we get there, right? Without necessarily bottling it up and pushing it
Okay.
down. But I'm sure I've done the other too.
Okay. Kyle, sorry, you got a question, or I was
No.
going to do a total rabbit trail.
I was going to do rabbit trail too.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to talk about this gospel day that you're doing, the
Yeah.
organization you
Yeah,
work for.
do that
Why are you personally passionate about it? And tell me about this day and how people could get involved. Or
Yeah, you know what? Gospel Alive Day is all about. Well, it's about celebrating that the gospel is alive in Canada. So in that, there's to me, there's encouragement. I'm really, I can have a critical spirit. And a good day, it's called analytical, and a bad day, it's called a critical spirit.
I
I
like
that.
it.
Yeah.
I can look at what churches are doing, and I can break it down. I've been a pastor's kid. I've been a worship leader. I've been on pastoral staff. I can go on a Sunday and I can critique everything that's going on and find all the things that are wrong. And when I look at churches across Canada, I've been in small churches that aren't thriving. You would look at and go, man, I mean, should they even be around? Right. And other churches that are booming and things are happening. My dad was pastor of churches. We had baptisms, but we didn't have 30 baptisms at the lake in one thing. Right. It just, you'd sit there and go, man, this is, it doesn't feel like it's
Vibrant.
as alive and vibrant as it can be. But, those churches in those communities, by living out the gospel, by the impact that they're having in their community, by actively pursuing the gospel in their workplaces and their communities and stuff, they set, there's young people growing up in those churches who become, who end up moving to other places, and they learn what it is for the gospel to be alive in their life. And I want to encourage those pastors who are doing their best to bring the gospel on Sunday morning, to teach and to shepherd their people. I want to encourage them that you're important to the fact that the gospel is alive in Canada, whether you're a small little community church or whether you're a big booming church in a city. So when we put this together, we wanted something where every a People's Church in Toronto or church in Watrous, Saskatchewan could participate and be part of it, but they celebrate it in their own local context in their own DNA. We're not trying to bring them together. We're not trying to have them do something they don't normally do. And I wanted to encourage them that we see you and we love that you are living out the gospel in every way that you can. And that's important. And so Gospel Alive Day is an invitation for churches to participate. It's a way for us to celebrate that the gospel is alive in Canada, in communities right across the country.
And practically, like, so me as a member, I'm like, okay, I know about this day now. Maybe Essentials can be involved, maybe not. I don't know, but like, it doesn't really affect me now. So for the practical, is there something for that?
There is. And thanks for asking, Kyle. For the individuals, we are collecting stories from across the country of how people are seeing the gospel alive. So how are you seeing God working? So we have a thing on the website where you pull it up and it's ready for you to record your personal story. You can do it on your phone or whatever, or you can write it down if you want. And we can put the story up as well. But we are trying to capture, and we're working with camps and Bible colleges and stuff to capture how the gospel is alive across the country, just to inspire people and to give people, I think it's important to see ourselves sometimes in others and go, wow, you know what? I see what they're doing and I can do that too.
Well, years ago when I was going to Southside, there used to be, and it's been a long time since they've had a big one at Prospera, or the Chilliwack Coliseum. But when I was younger, I don't know if you remember going, but they used to do like a citywide service in our town in Chilliwack.
Sure. Didn't Matt Keane preach at it a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago?
that was in the park, right? He and I decided the other night. I told him that wasn't the same thing, but he said it was. But no, I digress. It was, but I'm just saying it was like at the Chilliwack Coliseum, and there was probably 3,000, 4,000 people there, and I always found it super encouraging.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, hey, as you're going about your day, now we should be able to see it anyways, and how people treat their waitress and how people do business and everything. We should just be able to tell that your life should look different. But it's like, it was just encouraging. It's like you see all these people that you saw around town, and it was definitely, I thought it was awesome. So are you sending invites out to every church, or how do you go about that in the form of your ministry? Like, did you basically send out a package to all the churches, the denominations, or?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of churches that we have relationship with. So we sort of approached them already, and then we sent out, I think the list was over 8,000 churches across the country.
Wow.
And we're bringing a piece. So for a large church, they don't need our help to put on an event, right? But for the smaller churches, we're providing a kit with everything they need, with slides and invitations.
Because that's a big reason that people wouldn't do something. They don't need more work. It's a one-man band there already.
Yeah, so we want it to be free for them to do. We want it to be easy for them to do. So for the smaller churches, they've got everything kind of in a kit ready to go. They can put on an event. It's right before Canada Day. And so it's
the first year you're doing it?
Yeah, this is the first annual. We are looking to
build on it.
And so
sorry, go ahead.
I have a quick question on the state of Christianity in Canada. Like usually I hear a lot of negative stuff, or not negative, just like the fact that it's declining in Canada and that churches are emptying out. We heard in a recent sermon that there's 600 pastors retiring in Canada this year and only 200 new people coming in. But your message is actually a little different, more of hope, and that there's a lot of Christians still in Canada that want to follow. What would you say the state is of Christianity in Canada, and the needs, and like even just the pastor thing? Like that one really hit me. I was like, wow, like that's crazy.
The pastor thing is legit, and it's serious. And as Outreach Canada, we want to be part of the solution. How do we help figure this out? Because we are going to need more pastors. That's a reality. On the other side of it, we're seeing things like the open generation study that Baars has done, some of the studies that Alpha is part of, where the younger generation especially is more open to invitation to church. And so we're leaning into that, where the church has such a critical role. I find that a lot of organizations, they bring a lot of great ideas and tools and resources to the table, but it's not a replacement for the relationships that come out of the church. And so in that equipping, we need to come alongside as a trusted partner of the church in Canada and help them be stronger so they can live that out in their communities. I don't have a relationship with someone in a community, and I can't pretend to, but that church does. And so if there's a willingness, and we're seeing evidence of that, there's a willingness to not be offended by religion coming up, or Christianity coming up, faith coming up in conversations, that there's an openness to have that, and actually an openness if you invite someone to church that they're actually willing to come. We're leaning into that and going, okay, if that's what we're seeing, then let's not be shy, right? Let's be out there, and let's be willing to live out our faith and be okay with it, and not be fearful, and not have those boundaries up.
This is a long podcast, one of the longer briefcases in the barn. Kyle's tweaking. He's got this like time frame in his mind. It does not matter. It's irrelevant. Joe would say, hey, just go until you're done, right? We normally talk current events,
right,
finances, agriculture, much to his chagrin. We haven't touched on, should we talk about current events a bit today? I mean,
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode and were blessed by it, would you be willing to support the show? That would help a lot in creating more content, improving the quality of the content, putting the production value, getting more guests on, and me being able to spend more time and energy towards it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can click up here and it'll take you to a support page. But you can also subscribe to the podcast by clicking over here and doing that. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.